Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Speak Out Show, a program of Move Network International. My name is Derek Ongeyun, and I will be hosting this show today. Today, we are going to be speaking about something that is very amazing, and we have an amazing person who is going to be sharing today. Her name is Aga Kahinde. She'll introduce herself more, and she'll be discussing the topic coping mechanisms for stress and trauma. And she has done a lot of work around that. So, yeah, I'll give her an opportunity to introduce herself, and then we'll dive straight into the business for today. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Derek. And it's lovely to be here, and it's lovely to share my experiences with you. But we all have a lot of experiences, so don't think that I know more, because probably I'm not. I'm just coming from the different
Thank you.
angle. And I really truly believe that everyone has a knowledge, and it's God given. So I'm just sharing. I'm just sharing
Mhm.
what I know. So my name is Aga Kahinde, as Derek said, and I'm based in the UK, but I am from Poland. And my background is so I've got few hats on as I do different things, but my background is in cancer nursing. So I've been in the cancer care my whole life, really.
Wow.
And that work in the cancer care kind of springboard me into different ways. And it was just based on my experience working with people under extreme pressure and under extreme circumstances of dealing with the diagnosis that brings them kind of into to thinking about their life and changing their life, but a lot of stress, ongoing stress, which we know that it could be quite traumatic. And we talk about trauma in a
Yes.
little bit.
Yes.
And then I work with the very busy hospital here in the UK. And during the COVID, the staff started to really fall apart, experiencing a lot of visceral trauma and, trauma that is more based on their belief system. They needed to make a lot of
Mhm.
decisions that were not agreeing with them. So we call that moral trauma. And that really kind of
Wow.
got me thinking about what do we do as a human being when we support people, but we also traumatize people. So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of started to look into what is trauma and how people experiencing trauma in my
Mhm.
field to start from. And then that's how I learn a lot about it. When the people going through a horrendous time in their life, what makes some people going through that with no impact or very low impact. Some people are very resilient. Some people can cope with, mortality
Yes.
and shorten of
Yes.
life and difficulty around that. And some people can't. And also I was working with
Exactly.
staff, because that's my specialty now. I work with staff and make them aware of trauma and how to communicate with people to reduce that risks. So that's where I started. And then I've learned a lot about trauma and start exploring different different kind of different ways in which people in not just in cancer but outside of cancer, where other people are most vulnerable. And that led me into working with young adults in the community and people who are dealing with their traumatic experience, either
Yes.
from the
Yes.
childhood or as they are, and what they do. So I start working with addictions, and that led me directly into working in prison and justice system, because that's where a lot of vulnerable people are ending up because of their behaviors, because of their inability to cope. And so this is kind of how I've built my skills and knowledge. And then the war in Ukraine break, and because we are kind of next door neighbors to it, we had an influx
Yeah.
of people coming into Poland, and I
Coming
felt
in.
that
Yeah.
really internal urge to go and help them. So I kind of been exposed into trauma that is slightly different, and I've designed a big project, collaborative project with different organizations, and went into Poland, worked directly with Ukrainian refugees, but also with the support system in Poland, how they taking people who are highly traumatized and what they do to not to re-traumatize. And that's how this whole thing led me into where I am. So now I am still working in the hospital, but I lead a research projects that looking into impact of us as a healthcare professionals on the people who are going through traumatic experience of cancer. So I teach that, I do a lot of research around that, but I also have organization that is working with the justice system, and we bring a trauma awareness into prisons and into communities. And my latest development is I have another side organization that created a safe house for people who are coming out of prison or coming out of homelessness, and they have specified support in that house that focusing on
Wow.
trauma, which is slightly different to
Wow.
all other establishment that just kind of house them and keep them safe. We, on top of
Mhm.
that, do a lot of work with trauma. So yeah, this is where I am at the moment. So three
Wow.
big hats.
Wow, that's amazing. You are doing a lot of work, I must say, a lot of work, and it's amazing. For the time that I have known you, I know that the work that you're doing is very important, and that you are impacting a great deal of lives, and that's why this conversation is going to be very helpful for so many people out there. And the good thing is that you are working with young people. And
Yes,
we want to tailor this information to basically help the young people all across the world so that we
yes,
amplify honest conversations on mental
yes,
health, resilience, purpose for young people, both here in Uganda and beyond. And
yes,
so,
yes,
yeah, as we dive today into our into our conversation. So, our first question is, Aga, one, I will ask you to briefly talk about what is stress and what is trauma, but also you work with individuals, like you've said, and organizations navigating crisis. From your experience, what does stress and trauma actually look like in everyday life, especially when it goes unnoticed or unspoken of?
yes. So from my experience, stress and trauma often don't look dramatic at all, right? Most of the time they look functional. That's what we would say. People are still going to work, they're caring for others, they're answering their emails, but
Mhm.
they are constantly tired, emotionally flat, they could be irritable, or disconnected from themselves. They may struggle with sleep, feel on edge or fear without any reasons, or live with a constant sense of pressure that kind of, they come to see as normal. We're normalizing that responses that we have because it's unspoken. It often goes unnoticed as well by others, and by the persons themselves. So trauma is often misunderstood as something that only comes from extreme or catastrophic events. So I just
Exactly.
wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that we have this understanding. I define trauma less by what happened and more by what happened inside of the person as the consequences of what
Uh-huh.
happened. So trauma occurs when experience overwhelms someone's ability to cope. As simple as this, and it could be when we are on the sideline, we think, well, you should be able to cope with this. Why you all of a sudden stop functioning?
Yeah.
Why can't you sleep? Why can't you process? We've been through the same things. What happens? So,
Yeah.
this is very important for us to understand there is a distinction of that. So when something is too overwhelmed to someone and they can't cope anymore, they can't process or feel safe, and they left carrying it alone, then that is when the trauma occurs. So two people can go through the same situation and be affected very, very differently.
Differently. Yeah.
So the quieter form of stress are often the most damaging one, because they are chronic. There's a stress that builds up, is prolonged. There's prolonged uncertainty, the emotional
Hmm.
neglect, the high pressure environments, the caregiving without support, financial strain, constant suppressing emotion to function. I need to cope with this to function. And over time, this kind of stress wears people down. It shows us burnout, loss of joy. All of a sudden, we don't feel the joy, difficulty concentrating, physical symptoms, of course, with no clear cause. We're thinking about all these, illnesses that all of a sudden surface in the society, like a lot of autoimmune diseases, that sort of things, or living in survival mode for years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the stress is a natural response that we have, right? So I just wanted to, again, distinct that for you guys, that stress is not necessarily the pressure that we feel around, but the stress is
Hmm.
our natural body response, right? To put us
Hmm.
into a safety zone. So we are being set up to fight or flight or to freeze to preserve the safety. That's stress. Trauma
In other words,
is
it
what.
has a positive part. There's a positive part to it.
Absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
there is a great book called a I don't remember now the exact name, but it's about stress and how positive stress is, how we need stress. You know,
Hmm.
there is this term called eustress, and look that up, guys, because it's really interesting concept. Eustress is the positive stress when we feel energized, you know, when we feel
Yeah.
motivated, but it comes with there's enough pressure and is enough time and capability to cope. So we want to be in that eustress. So it's a positive
Yeah.
aspect of stress. But
Yeah,
when it's a little
indeed.
bit too much pressure and we can't, cope with the time, then we're
Hmm.
moving into a burnout and overstressing, and that will leave the mark. So trauma is the consequences of inability to cope with whatever life is throwing at us. So that's really important distinctions. And it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a big life-changing event, like one. And there is a definition by DSM, which is a medical definition for trauma, that there need to be an event that is life-threatening. But that's not how I believe. Trauma is what is stays the wound behind us of the experiences that we have. So we all may be developing trauma. We don't even know about it. So don't define trauma as there need to be a life-threatening event, because there is more to it. And just keep your mind open to what it means, is what is left behind us, inside of us, after an event.
Thank you so much for that. Most of us have always thought it has to be something very big, but
Mm-mm.
that distinction has made it very clear that even the slightest thing can actually cause trauma to us and stress. So thank you for that explanation, and thanks for answering that question perfectly well. So as we move forward, so many people think trauma must come from something extreme. You answered that, yeah, and how you define that, and so it's you have answered all that very perfectly. So as we understand trauma in your work, what are the most common unhealthy coping mechanisms people rely on, and why do they feel normal at? Why do those things feel
Yeah.
normal at first?
Yeah. So there is many. I mean, we could sit here and list them for forever, but I will share with you what I found the most common and unhealthy coping mechanism is. And for me, the one that is socially accepted one, that is the tricky one, and that is avoidance. So I think from the work that I do in the healthcare and from the work that I do with addiction and the young people, is avoidance is the
You're talking
major
about
one.
me.
Yes,
Yeah,
right. And that
yeah.
is, it could come out as a different things. It could be staying
Hmm.
constantly busy, overworking, scrolling, on the internet,
Yes,
um,
yes.
also intellectualizing emotions instead of feeling them, right? We're trying to give a explanation and kind of get into our brain, why do I feel like this, da da da, all that sort of things, or numbing. And you can numb with different things. You can numb with food, alcohol, but you can also numb, and that's for the young people here, you can numb your emotion with productivity, doing a lot, studying a lot, being involved in things, to not to think about the feeling that I have, right? Emotional suppression is another one that I feel is a big thing, is telling yourself you are fine, I'm fine, right? Just keep saying that. And here in England there is a big thing, people are asking that question, how are you doing? Everybody's fine. Everybody
Yeah.
is fine, right? Or minimizing needs, or postponing rest, like indefinitely, like I need to be busy all the time. That is very much what I'm seeing a lot as an avoidance response or emotional suppression response. And these strategies feel normal at first because they're working in the short term. If I keep busy and don't think, it's going to be okay. If I,
It's like
kind of
it's
spend
like
some.
we are in denial of what exactly is going on in inside us.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes. But they reduce discomfort and help people keep functioning. And this is why it's so dangerous, because it's acceptable. Someone busy, someone overworking, someone overstudying, someone never resting is good. but they design for surviving, but not for healing. Okay, so
Yeah.
coping to survive is very reactive and very often is unconscious. We just do it. And it's about getting through the day without falling apart. Coping to heal is a different things. It involves awareness, it involves choice, and involves compassion towards yourself. It asks different questions. What am I feeling? What am I avoiding? What do I need right now? Healing oriented coping may feel slower and more uncomfortable initially, but it restores agency rather than depleting it. So think about it that way. You know, when I stop for a moment, right? When I don't keep myself busy, when I let just say pray or meditate or whatever that you may be doing, all of a sudden you've got influx of those uncomfortable memories, emotions, things that you feel, and you're
Mm.
like, I don't want to be dealing with this, so I need to keep busy. So staying in it is quite difficult. It needs time, it needs self-awareness, and it needs compassion. So you need to be able to say, even though I feel those feelings,
Mhm.
internally I'm okay. So you then separating yourself from this is my experience and this is me having an experience, and even though it's really challenging and fearful and scary, I am still able to see it and do something about it. So you know that's how I'm seeing. But the avoidance and the numbing is two
Um,
big things that I
okay.
see again and again, because that creates a need for unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah. So you have hinted two major things as you were explaining that, and so I would like you to clearly make some distinctions between coping to survive and coping to heal
Yeah.
for people that are dealing with these emotional imbalances. Someone that is traumatized, someone that is stressed to the limit. How do they distinguish between coping just to survive and coping to heal? Because the most important thing is we want to heal, not just to survive.
Yeah. So so it's all about the self-awareness, right? So that
Mhm.
recognition, the moment in which you stop and say, well, hold on a minute, right? Is this me doing these things to
Mhm.
survive day by day and not think about my emotions? Or actually, is this like I'm aware of this emotions and then I can do something about it? So that is a big distinction in which you have an agency to make a choice,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And when I,
yeah.
especially when I work with young people who kind of moving into addictive type of behaviors,
Mhm.
right? You know, so they recognize, okay, I feel this feeling subconsciously because it's uncomfortable. They don't want to bring attention to it. They feel the feeling and they reaching out for the quick solution. So that's the coping mechanism to survive, not to
Yeah.
heal.
Mhm.
Coping mechanism to heal is about awareness and choosing the way, the tool, the strategy in which I can process rather than numb and put it
Now,
away. Yeah,
exactly. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That makes it
And
perfectly clear. Yeah.
yeah. And you know, you also need to be able to recognize that. You need to be recognized when the things in you starting to escalate. So how do I know I am
Mhm.
now in trauma response versus my normal function? So I help people to focus on patterns, right? Early warning signs, and they're very subtle,
Yeah,
changes in
yeah.
sleep, irritability, withdrawal. I will give you my example. So when I was working in the hospital during the COVID, I I have two roles in my work, three actually,
Mhm.
but one I will leave behind. The two main roles that made me feel that I'm going through some traumatic experience, and that was I was dealing with a beds management. So I needed to
Mhm.
make a decision on the daily basis which patients can go home, which patients can stay in the hospital. And those
Yeah.
patients were all unwell. But I needed to make a choice which one are less unwell, although I believed all of them should be in the hospital and being taken care of, but we didn't have enough beds. So that was one thing. And then had a lot of pressure from doctors and nurses saying, we need this bed, we need this bed, you need to make a decision. So that was one of my roles, very
Yeah.
active, very kind of decision making. The other role I had was I was a nurse of specific cancer, which is quite SAD cancer is unknown primary. That means someone feels fine, all of a sudden has got a lot of pain, comes into the hospital, they do a scan and test, and they find out there is cancer everywhere and we can't heal them. So we need
Wow.
to tell them
Wow.
that and we need to send them home to basically pass away with their families. So I was
Wow.
doing that on the daily basis. A lot of very traumatic experiences and you
Yeah.
needed to hold the space. And
Yeah.
I started to notice that on when I get home, all of a sudden I couldn't sleep. I was having a ruminating thoughts. I didn't want to speak to my children, to my husband. I spent time on my phone just to get my head out of that, like go on
Yeah. Yeah.
Instagram and doing all the reels and stuff, TikTok and things. And then I start numbing myself by having a glass of wine in the evening. I was like, I'm just
Hmm.
going to have it to take edge off, right? I start to be very irritated about things. So this was creeping up on me. But I felt like, okay, this is normal. I just need to survive the day. And what happened at the end, when that was my wake up call, because I'm a very passionate nurse, I always wanted to be nurse because I love people. And one day at the hospital, I said, I don't want to go and see the patient anymore. And for me, it was like, whoa, Aga, hold on a minute. This is your passion. You always wanted to do it. So what is going on? And that was my pivotal point in which I realized I'm going through something. Otherwise, I would just go on with it. I would drink a little bit more. My marriage would probably break down. Do you know what I mean? All that stuff will creep on
Yeah.
me. But that was
Yeah.
my pivotal point. So what it is about recognizing your escalation. What are you doing that is not healthy? How is your sleep? How is your food?
Are
What
those
are you drinking? Are
are
you
those
smoking?
like are those like triggers? Are those like the triggers that come before something escalates, trauma escalates or stress escalates?
Exactly. That is when your level of tolerance of the adversity that happens around you is shrinking. Is
Mm-hmm.
going you have um less tolerance to the stress that you're having, right? And
Yeah.
and then you cope with that less, right? Your fuse is shorter and shorter and shorter. You're realizing you're getting angry or you're getting sad or you don't want to do
Yeah.
stuff, right, quicker.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you seeing yourself that something is going on, I'm not coping with it well. So that is your early warning call, I would call that, right? And it's really difficult for us to realize, but for that you need to have that stopping point. For me, that was the moment in which I say, I don't want to see the patient. So cognitively, I thought there is something wrong because I always liked patients. I loved patients. And all of a sudden I say, I don't want to go and see it. So think about it. What am I doing to numb it, to avoid my feelings? And then
Yeah.
where am I with my day-to-day activities? All of a sudden you may see like, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to see my friends. I don't want to deal with this assignment, right? I don't want to go to work. All those stuff is like, well, why is this changing now? So it's really, really important. And avoidance is the earliest signal that something feels overwhelming or unsafe. People start withdrawing. I don't want to talk to my friends. I don't want to go to church. All that stuff. I want to
Yeah.
deal it with myself.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah.
Very, very real. Because personally, I've gone through all that, so I totally agree with you.
And when people learn to notice those signs, and the
Mm-hmm.
really important thing, Derek, here is you need to notice those signs without judging yourself, right? And only then, without judgment, because the worst thing is, you're noticing and you telling yourself, well, there's something wrong with you, you're doing something wrong, you're a really bad person, you're drinking more, you're a bad person, you're not going to church, you're a bad person, right?
Yeah.
And that judgment is important to take it away from you, because only then you can intervene, right, with
Mhm.
rest, boundaries, regulation, support, rather than waiting for a breaking point. Okay, so this is a really important for young people. When you're noticing things, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means something is happening to you, and it makes you react or act or put those things in place to
In place.
make
Yeah.
yourself feel safe. But that's the time when the judgment isn't serving you well.
Yeah. I think it that brings us back to what you said earlier. You need to be self-aware. understand exactly what is going on in your life and be able to accept that, oh, this is actually happening. You see the triggers and then you are able to act on
Yes.
it. Yeah. So
Yes.
as you've mentioned very, very important insights right there that where we are as of now, I believe we have helped so many people who will be watching this clip. And so I would like us to talk about some practical tools
Yeah.
that we can apply and how we
Yeah.
can maneuver through this. So if any young person listening right now feels overwhelmed but doesn't know where to start,
Mhm.
what are the three grounding practices you would
Mhm.
recommend immediately for them to take on?
Yeah. So, historically, in psychology and psychotherapy, we were using a lot of cognitive function, right? Meaning we were thinking about triggers, we were processing with our heads.
Mhm.
This is, I feel this way. I need to kind of connect the feeling into the thoughts and where is it coming from. And very often, when you had traumatic experience, whether big ones or smaller creeping ones, you very rarely want to think about them too much because it
Yes.
brings the feelings, and the feelings, remember, are body based, they somatic, and also
Mhm.
stress is very body based, right? So
Yeah.
when we are triggered, our brain shuts our prefrontal cortex for safety. We don't have time now to overthink where the feeling comes from. And then it kind of instigate cascade of kind of stuff happening in our body. So we start producing cortisol, testosterone, adrenaline, because we want to fight or run away, right? Or we want to freeze. So the response to stress and trauma is in the body, not in the head. So the first advice for me is, do not try to understand with the head. Go into your body. So the three recommended tools and techniques are all body based for me. So once you calm your body that naturally responds to stress, all of a sudden the thinking comes back, right? Because if the body is calm, the nervous system say, okay, you're safe. So now you can process things. Without body being in safety, you can't do it. So there is a
Exactly.
very easy things to do, and think about it simple, in a simple way. Okay. So let's say you've got I will just share with you what you can do in the stressful moment, right? When your body responds, because response is the same, whether this is a stress, whether it's anxiety, whether it's a trauma response. The body will always respond in the same way because that's how we design, right? We'll go into fight, flight, freeze, flop state. So the first thing you do, you need to down-regulate your nervous system, because nervous system doesn't understand the words. It has to be done with your body. Everybody's got access to those. And the first thing is, think about your breath. So let's say you are going into stressful, I don't know, like if there is a lot of young people and you're going to school or
Mhm.
university, for example, right? And you have a presentation, right? This is one of the common things that put people in a lot of stress. So you've done a lot of work. Now you have to present in front of the people, in front of your teacher. So
Yeah.
you know in your head, you've got all the information because you've been working on this. Hopefully
Very
everybody
true.
works on their presentation for a long time. But
Yeah.
your body, nevertheless, your body will start pumping your heart. You will start breathing
Exactly.
faster. You will get sweaty, right? You will get red in your face, in your neck. Your throat will start
Yeah.
closing down. You can't find the words. Well, if you can't find the words, that is a good signal that that prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that needs to shut down when the body is in the stress response. So everybody's got access to breath, right? And we do that naturally, right? If you want to calm down, you go, I need to take a few deep breaths, right? So regulate the breathing, slowing the exhale slightly longer. Take the inhale to signal safety to the nervous system. Because if your nervous system wants to hyperventilate to keep you safe, if you slow down your breath, you're telling your nervous system, even though you think you are, about to go through something very stressful, I'm telling you with my breath, you are safe. So breathing is a really good write that very fast tool to down-regulate your nervous system. Another one is when we in stress response, all of a sudden we're losing the capacity to know where we are, what's happening around us. It's very tunnel vision. I mean, if you remember, being in a lot of stress, all of a sudden you can't see people, you just in it. So
Yeah,
another really good tool is to just very slowly, so you're doing opposite what your body wants to do. Your body wants to be fast, you want to act, you want to run away, or you want to kind of fight.
mm,
Orient yourself where you are. Turn your head very slowly left, right, see things around you. There's a lot of orienting. There is a lot of orienting techniques and tools. Some people say like, oh, I find 3 things that are red in the room, or 5 things that I can hear, all those things that bring you into the present moment. So it's called orientation. And slow down the movements. Look up, look down, look left. And you will see, you send the signal subconsciously into your nervous system that you slowing down. So it's like kind of confusing your nervous system who wants to do things quickly. By doing this, you like confusing it, okay?
yeah,
And that
yeah.
calms down. And the third, of course, yourself and me, we know we use tapping.
Tapping,
Tapping is a
yes.
great tool, is the one that I use everywhere, is the one that I recommend to everyone, is a tapping on the few points on your body and on your face. And we know scientifically that sends the signal into the part of the brain that is responsible to put you in that stress response. So it's a very fast technique. The one that I use and teach in the prisons, in the schools with youths, in the cancer space is called TTT, trauma tapping technique. And it's just the tapping and breathing and sending the signal to your nervous system, you are safe. So those are the 3 highly recommended tools: breath, orienting where you are, and tapping. Okay. And
Wow.
the one thing that I want to add to all this, these practices aren't to fix anything. They're about creating enough stability for you in the moment to take a next step. Because let's say you are about to give that presentation, your body is sweating, is in the response. You calm it down, the body, not your head. You see, I don't say that you need to tell yourself, oh, you're fine, you've done a lot of work. That's not going to work. Yeah, your
It's
body's going to
always
be in
the body,
response.
the
Yeah,
body.
calms
Yeah,
the body. The moment you calm the body, the logic comes back and say, what the hell? I have done a lot of work. I know what I'm doing here. And everything is fine. Is that this you calming your body to take the next steps, whatever they are, okay?
yeah. That is very helpful. And for the TTT, yeah, we personally, I use TTT, and also we apply it with the teenage mothers that we work with here at Move Network International, and it's amazing. It's amazing. In a few in a few days from now, we are going to be moving into schools to actually share the same. So
Wonderful.
yeah,
Yes.
we
Yes.
wanted to go
And
to the prisons, and
yeah.
we couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were
Well, I
saying something.
hope I hope you will. The God will open the doors for you guys at some point.
Yeah,
I trust that that's what happens. Um, the one thing I want to say, do not underestimate the simplicity of working with your body. Everybody can disregard, people are going, oh, breath work, oh, orientation, it's too easy. We want something sophisticated. Actually, we don't. We want to go back into very basic, our natural capacity that we have given, by nature, and that's how we've been designed to deal with the stress responses. So it's kind of reminding and trusting your body you can do it, because triggers can come from anywhere. I'm sharing with you example of the exam, right? But you can sit in your room, and if you had any traumatic experience as a child in the past, and the memory creeps on you from nowhere, right? Because that sometimes
yeah,
happened. The memory creeps on you, and you remember something, your body goes into response like this is happening. Because that's how a body works. You project something and your body responds as is it happening. So that's from the traumatic experience from the past. But also you can wake up in the morning and think about the day that you have ahead. So that's anxiety. right?
Yeah,
Anxiety is about prediction of something that may happen. It's
that
not
might
happening,
happen.
but it may happen. But your body doesn't know the difference. Your body will still think you are actually in the middle of doing that because you're thinking that. So it's really important to distinct that as well. And then you put you into the stress response, right?
Yeah.
And then you need to calm down your body because you can't talk yourself out, right? You will sit and reason, well, this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen. Well, there's a 50-50% it may happen. So how you're reasoning, it doesn't matter. It's what you're seeing in your mind creates a response in your body. So again, starting from calming down the body, even though you remember these things right here, right now, you're safe, orienting, breathing, tapping. And again, if you're predicting something, even though you think this may happen, right here, right now, you're safe. So it's all about working with the body in the present moment.
Wow, thank you so much. I think our time is fast spent, and I want to cut this short. Yeah.
Go on, I
So
will be quick.
yeah, so I am going to go to like two or more three questions, and then we'll get done. So how can young professionals manage stress without feeling guilty for resting, slowing down, or asking for help? Especially asking for help. The biggest challenge that young people face these days is they feel like they shouldn't ask for help. They feel stigmatized, they feel ashamed for doing certain things. And so, and yet they are in distress. They are traumatized, they are in stressful moments. So how can you help them so that they don't feel all that as they are
The
managing
guilt.
stress?
The guilt, yes, of
Yeah.
managing the stress without guilt.
Yes.
Okay. So managing stress, okay, so the response is, as we said, is about awareness, but then doing something about it. And doing something about it comes with a guilt, right? So managing stress, a lot of things is about resting, slowing down, and asking for help, right?
Exactly.
And it starts from reframing rest, okay? And reframing rest as a functional requirement, not a reward. I'm Polish, right? We
Uh-huh.
are made to believe you have to work hard. We have this saying, that the success comes with blood and sweat. So that's how I was raised up. If
Wow.
something comes easy and if you rest too much, means you're doing something wrong. That's how I was brought up. So for
That is the
me,
same here, by the way. Same here.
there we go. Yes,
If you're
yes.
resting, they say, I think you have a lot of money. Hey, so you have to leave home even if you have nothing to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, reframing rest as a functional requirement. So if you think that way, I required a rest period, slowing down in order to restore so I can do more, but
Hmm.
not do more as a more running around, but more as a effectiveness of what I do. It's not a
Yeah.
reward. Rest is not a reward, and that's what you need to get in, okay? Guilt often comes from trying self-worth to productivity, tying self-worth to productivity. More productive I am, then more worthy I am. Again, without proper rest, you are not productive. So rest, slowing down, and asking for help are forms of regulation, not weakness. So it's a reframing, is how we think about it. So think about rest to be functional requirement. And again, noticing early signs of overwhelm, such as avoidance, fatigue, being irritated, and responding early helps preventing the long-term harm. So asking for help is a core of professional skill. Every single highly professional individual in the big companies, in the very busy environment, know that resting is restorative, is not a reward. Right? We're not talking about reward.
As we are concluding, we were just talking about how we can, how professionals or how young people can manage stress without feeling guilty as they are taking rest, slowly asking for help and all those other supporting tools. How don't they feel guilty? And you have given some great insights right there. So as we are closing this podcast today, Aga, if you could leave young people with one mindset shift, just one mindset shift about stress and trauma that could genuinely change how they live, what would that be?
Yeah. So I would leave I would leave you guys with this, right? That stress and trauma, so stress, the response, and trauma, the wound behind, are not the signs that something is wrong with you. Okay, there are signals that something important needs care, needs being taken
Yeah,
care of, right? So that's a really important. So when you stop asking what's wrong with me and start asking what is happening to me and what do I do and what do I need now, everything changes. That shift from judgment to curiosity. What is happening to me? Why can I not sleep? Why am I taking a drugs? Why am I drinking alcohol? Why am I arguing more? Why is my ability to cope with things so short? Why my fuse is so short? That shift from judgment to curiosity allows compassion, right? It
yeah,
allows rest because if I am not judging myself for being so angry, so upset, so not able to cope, right? And I come from the compassion, what is happening to me, that naturally move into compassion. Well, what can I do about this? And, rest, boundaries. What do I say no to? What am I taking on? And help to become part of everyday life is a really important one. It turns survival to self leadership. And that's where the healing begins. You are taking care of yourself. You're noticing my ability to cope shrinks. I react in particular way, or I have an internal wound that brings memories that makes me act in particular way, that makes me numb and avoid. And that shift is so important because only then you can do something about it.
yeah,
So that's what
yeah,
I would
that
leave
is
you with.
true. Yeah, that is true. So for me, I think uh, all I can say is that we need to be self-aware. We need to be conscious of what exactly is happening in our lives. And once we understand, once we get to notice that something is actually going on inside us, then we don't need to avoid it. We don't need to
Yes.
avoid it. We need to confront it and seek for support, seek
Confront in the
guidance,
most compassionate and understanding way,
standing way.
right?
Yeah,
Well, I'm a
yeah,
woman of faith, so you attend yourself like Jesus attend to people, right? That's where
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
coming from. And
yeah.
and he would never say, he would never judge, right? So that's how I'm looking at this. And no judgment is something is happening to you. It's not you that are broken.
Because when you mention that, I know we have run out of time, but when you mention that, it reminds me of a time when personally I got traumatized because of an accident that I got into,
Hmm.
and it was fatal because someone died, and so it affected me for quite some time, and it took me a while actually one get to understand that it was actually trauma,
Yeah,
and then two, I even after I understood it, I couldn't share it with people because I didn't want to look weak.
that's
I
right.
didn't want to
Yeah.
look weak. So I totally refused to accept it. I totally avoided it. And
Yeah,
I wasn't compassionate about myself, just like you are saying.
yeah,
So it was pure guilt, I think. It
yeah,
was purely something that I was trying to avoid.
yeah,
But yeah, but with whatever we have shared today, I think someone has learned something, and that they are going to apply these things that we have talked about, and it will greatly work in their lives.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I really hope so. I really hope so.
Yes.
We're not broken. We have experiences, and we now, with compassion and love, can attend to ourselves, rest, slow down, notice things, notice, how much you can tolerate, and if that is shrinking, that means there is something happening, and attend to that, and give yourself permission to feel.
All right. Thank you so much, Aga. Thank you for sparing your time for being with us today. And for everyone who has watched this show, we ask you to subscribe. Please share with friends, share with family members, and everyone that might need this kind of information,
Yeah.
because it is important that we support each other in one way or the other. So have a great day. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. So I will stop the
Thank you.
recording.
Thank you.